Number 15. Frédéric Bazille was one of the impressionists right there from the start, although he started by studying medicine. And as a matter of fact, when Monet was painting in the forest of Fontainebleau, Barbizon paintings, a very bad accident happened. There was a German hammer thrower who was practicing, and Monet received on his leg the hammer. And so Bazille took care of him and did a very good job. Here, this is Bazille's studio on the Rue Contamine. And I'm putting that painting in number 15 position because it shows something about the way the Impressionists work. First of all, let me make the introductions. At the easel with the paintbrush in hand, you have Edouard Manet. Behind Manet, you have Monet. Standing next to the easel, the tall guy is Bazille. On the stair, you have Zola, and he's looking down at Renoir. And then you have Maître on the other side. Now, all these artists work together. The interaction between the Impressionists is one of the key elements of the way they created Impressionism. For detail, if you look at Manet, the painting was painted by Bazille, but Manet did the head of Bazille. So it's a collaboration, as they did a lot of collaborative, not works, but collaborations on the way they created the Impressionism. Now, Bazille was a very nice guy, great guy. Unfortunately, he died at age 29. He was killed in the war of 1870. During that period of time, the French uniforms were a bright red. Bazille was very tall. In the forest where he was killed, everything was green. So it was the perfect target. Bazille was very kind, and he had some money from his family, and they were from Montpellier, and they sent him money regularly. And so he would share with his friends. Very often his friends would not have a studio. They would share Bazille's studio. They did not have enough to eat. He would feed them. So he was a great guy all around. Did not have to go to the war. He volunteered.
I'm just curious, you mentioned that one of them he's got money from his family. What was the economic background of the rest of the crew? Mostly from wealthy families?
Money and money. Monet didn't have money. Renoir was from a very simple background, and they didn't have money at all. Monet and Renoir at one point almost died of starvation. Sisley, his parents had been rich, but they were ruined by the Franco-Prussian War, and so he experienced continual poverty throughout his life. Pissarro struggled for years and years and years. So, and then you have, and as we will see, Caillebotte, who had money, and Bergmoris, who had money as well. Talking about Caillebotte, here he is in number 14 position. And Gustave Caillebotte was a very interesting guy. He was a very wealthy naval engineer, but he also, can you go back for a second? He was also someone who went to the Beaux-Arts and studied at the Beaux-Arts. So he was not just an amateur, he was someone who had learned. You have a portrait of Caillebotte by Renoir on the left and a self-portrait of Caillebotte on the right. And the next one. And then you have a spectacular painting by Caillebotte in that show. I mean, it's absolutely spectacular. It's not totally an Impressionist painting. Well, it belonged to the group of Degas, while you had the group of Monet on the other side. You have the technique, which is a traditional technique in some ways. You have also an interest in composition that is developed over many studies, as Degas did. Monet would sit in front of his landscape and painting all at once. There were no studies, it was just right there. He did lots of studies for this painting and many of his other paintings. Everything was carefully planned. Now, what is modern about it? Subject matter, floor scrapers. No Greeks, no Romans here either. And you have also the very interesting point of view à la Degas. You have also the very great interest in light and the effects of light. He had a little bit of a problem with the arms. They are a bit rubbery. And from time to time, when he had a problem, he would call in Renoir, and Renoir would show up, and Renoir would make some corrections and changes, and then would sign, but would sign Caillebotte. So there would be two signatures on the painting, Caillebotte by Renoir and Caillebotte by Caillebotte. Now, this guy is also extremely important in terms of the French collections. He had a lot of money, and he bought the works that his friends could not sell. And in the process, put together an absolutely amazing collection, which, at his death, and he died young, in his 40s, he willed to the Louvre. It was rejected 3 times. Finally, there was an outcry led by Renoir, and the collection was finally accepted. And that's the basis of the collection of the Musée d'Orsay. Without that collection from Caillebotte, the Musée d'Orsay would have a very so-so collection of Impressionist works. Caillebotte collection made the whole difference, whole world of difference. The next one. At number 13 position, we have an American, James Whistler. The next one, a spectacular painting. What's the name of the painting?
It's his mother.
Well, it's his mother, but that's not the name of the painting.
Portrait of the artist.
No, arrangement in black and white, and black and gray, number 1. Because it's all about tones. If you look at that painting, it might not look as spectacular as you might expect, even though it's quite large. But it's all about the harmony of the tones. There is also a great composition, the asymmetrical balance with the mother on one side and everything else in the painting leading you to the left side of the painting. But the harmony of the tones is absolutely remarkable. It's almost like a musical composition. As a matter of fact, if you look at the curtain, the design on the curtains almost look like notes of music. And that is what he did. This is, by the way, the most famous American painting not in America. The next one. At number 12 position, we have a painting by Claude Monet. Now, this is an interesting painting. Well, go ahead. This is an interesting painting which is not totally impressionistic in the technique, the brushwork. It was painted early on in 68, 69, and so at that time the brushwork was not quite what it will become, and we will see that later on, how the brushwork evolves. Now, the Impressionists love to paint snow scenes because snow is a marvelous surface. What's the color of snow?
White.
Blue, white. It's a reflective surface. So as a reflective surface, it picks up all the colors of the environment. Now, when you look at that painting in person, it's much more obvious, all the delicate tones that you have. The Impressionists painted, and especially Monet, painted these landscapes right there on the spot. They froze their fingers and many other parts of their body doing that. This was a tough job, a very tough job. But that was the only way to capture these effects. And I love the magpie on the gate, which is almost like a note of music. So that's a great painting by Claude Monet called The Magpie in number 12 position. And number 11 is another Monet, but done 10 years later. You can see the difference in the brushwork. Totally different approach. Rue Montorgueil, and that was to celebrate the great success of an international exhibition that took place in 1878. And it was also a way to glorify the changes that the Baron Haussmann had brought to Paris. Now, Monet did not have an apartment there. He went knocking on doors until someone let him use their window to paint that. Imagine that you could have a phonograph